1,000 folks, and we're going to need about every last seat here for this very popular topic today. The way we make these topics the most relevant, obviously this one struck a chord, one of our most high-demand topics that we've covered, is to hear from you, what topics would be most useful for us to cover in future sessions. And we encourage hearing from you at info@conversation.com, info@conversation.com. Let me quickly share a few procedural logistics, and we'll get started here. I welcome back Jim Melillo, Chairman of Executive Conversation, whose career includes CFO experience with both public and private companies, who will be leading our session today. This session will run about 30 minutes, and we'll address as many questions as we have time for at the end. Please enter your questions as we go in the box on the right side of your screen. And Jim, without further ado, let me turn the program over to you.
Eric and everyone, thank you. What I mean by everyone is I asked Eric.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Great startups, success factor. We've got pharmaceutical firms here with Pfizer. We've got Lawson, Hespera in our medical area, the traditional technology players, the HPs, the SAPs of the world, Cisco's. But what's fascinating, we also have Puget Sound Energy.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Get started if we could and take a look at what today's topic wants to cover. So what we want to do today is we want to talk about spending time talking to an individual like myself. So we always start off with a poll. We always ask for participation, and we always give you only 15 seconds. So let's open up the poll if we can. How much time should you ask for if you're going to have an executive discussion the first time out? 5 minutes, 30 minutes. So we're looking at hopefully the poll is up right now. Everybody, if you would vote. Give you 5 more seconds, and we're going to move on. Thanks. Close the poll, and what do we have here for results?
Jim, almost a complete dead heat. At 5 minutes, 44%, and at 30 minutes, 56%.
Pretty fascinating. So we had a big discussion about what this poll should say, and I said, no, let's not do this because nobody's going to choose 5 minutes. Well, thanks, Eric, for making me wrong, because what we have here is an amazing dichotomy. I can't do anything in 5 minutes. And let me tell you, the reason for that is really quite simple. And it works to your benefit, is that in 5 minutes, I can barely focus. Recently, I was reading Forbes, and they said the average CXO in a 60-hour week spends 40% of their time in the meetings. And that sounds right. About half my time was spent in meetings, and half my time was, as I always jokingly said, was doing something. 5 minutes doesn't give me a chance to focus. A classic example of that would be when you walk in to see me, the majority of times I and my other executives will say things like, so what do we plan on doing today? What's on the agenda? What should I be looking for from HP? It doesn't mean that I don't respect you. It just means I have no idea why you're standing in front of me. My assistant has probably given me a folder, and I probably have some notes in it, but the reality is 30 days ago, 20 days ago, I made a decision that it made sense to see you, and we'll talk about why I did that, and I completely forgot about our meeting. It doesn't mean it's not important. As a matter of fact, that's the reason 30 minutes is the answer here, because I will traditionally set aside minimum of 15. You can usually get to see me in about 2 weeks, and a maximum of 30 minutes. You can probably take a month to see me. So I would suggest if you have to see me in 2 weeks for some kind of emergency, then 15 minutes is a good number, but I would prefer we set aside 30. So when we ask for these meetings, a lot of times people have told me, Jim, I can't get to see you. So we went out on the internet and we found this chart, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really, I'm not sure I believe it, but what I do believe is the impact that it's trying to convey. Is that out of every 100 people that want to see me, 5 will get to see me. I'd say that that's probably a little low, but it's in the ballpark. This seems to say that there's a process that causes you not to see me. I'm going to say to you that it is not the process, it is you. And so just yesterday I was giving a speech, and I said to the group, who you are is who you will see. And it was a throwaway comment. I wish I was that genius. And yet everybody wrote it down. But in retrospect, it really is a smart idea. Who you are when you show up on my radar, on my administrator's radar, on your coach's, gee, I'm going to take a risk and support Bob or Gene as they move up to run their presentation by the executive. However you come in, who you are in that process is who you'll get to see. So keep that in mind as we go through this presentation. As we talk about it, what we have in front of you are whys. So let's start off with, why do you want to see me? It's obvious. The first set of 4, you should read it. It's nothing different. What does it enable you to do? It enables you to do 3 things. And the reason it enables you to do these 3 things is because it's the 3 things that I need. 1, there's been a massive shift, whether it's in healthcare, banking, manufacturing, or any other industry within the service group, where we are starting to move towards complete solutions versus best in breed. Now, if you remember the tech boom of the 90s, if you remember the technology boom within healthcare of the 90s and early 2000s, best in breed was a phrase everybody wanted to use. What people have found in the last decade is that integrating best in breed is so difficult, and being able to get the economic values out of that is so difficult that it doesn't work. In addition to that, various people came out of the German manufacturing business in the last 15 years and said fewer suppliers is better. And so I'm willing to live with a complete suite of solutions provided to me by a single company than I am to look at best in breed. So you get a bigger view of the enterprise. I'm looking for partners that can supply the enterprise. 2, it preempts your competition. Absolutely. I'm probably not going to talk to more than 1 at most 2 companies about a particular initiative. And it helps you optimize your personal ROI. As we talk about your becoming more cross-division, cross-industry, we basically give you a greater opportunity to build your business with me. We're together around this. And this view on this is pretty clear. I'm looking to work with people that reduce my risk and drive my initiatives. And so as you can begin to see here, there are very specific things that stand in your way or provide you opportunities to work with me. There are a lot of reasons why I don't want to see you. Because first of all, the vast majority of calls made on me in the past have been failures. You've all heard me that have been on these calls before talk about my experience as a New Yorker CFO type guy has been 85% of all the calls made on me are bad. So by definition, you start off being assumed to be an interruption. You start off being a short-term fix. My goal is to reduce risk, take a long-term view, and recognize the priorities that I've been assigned within the board of directors. Again, let me give you a proviso. I talk from the role of a CFO. What I'm talking about, though, applies just as much to the EVP of Finance, the EVP of R&D, the Vice President of Operations. We have all of these same concerns, and we have all of these same feelings, is that I don't expect I'm going to make money around this call. In addition, your calendar is off. So we threw this calendar up just to show you what the big items that I dealt with on a month-by-month basis were. But let's take a look at this and really focus on the one thing that matters. approximately October, I begin setting out my CapEx budget on a calendar year. And in October, I begin to roll out all the demands, possibly even as early as September. I once read an article that GE said 5,000 people start getting involved in their budgeting process in order for them to have a budget ready by January. So my year may begin in September. And by the time you get your quota in, quote, January, I'm in month 5. In addition, as you can see, when you want to get to see me in January, February, March, take a look at what that quarter looks like to me. And this was just the highlights. So a couple of things you need to know. One, you need to start earlier than you think, possibly as much as 4 months earlier than you think, in order to get on not only my agenda, but also to make an impact, to change the way we perceive you. And second of all, do yourselves a favor, spend the Q1 either closing the deal with my direct reports or building a rapport, because Q1, I'm extremely busy making sure we get out all of that. And so what are we looking for? We're looking for 4 steps here. And we've broken it down into 4 steps because, to be honest with you, this is how I see the way people come to me. It's a little more complicated than this. So we have linking to a trigger point, top of mind issue, or top of mind metric. Trigger point's becoming a more popular term these days. Second of all, we've always talked about the provocative idea, the good idea. You should be able to tell me something I don't know. You should be able to show me how I can do something that I don't know how to do. As I've mentioned in the past, my experience is I helped put in 2.5 manufacturing plants and 3 IT systems. How many production, IT, healthcare, technology solutions have you implemented? 50, 100, 200? I've done 3. You should have a reference success. We'll talk a little bit about that. And you should, again, based on the poll, ask for more time. So what are trigger points? Trigger points are things that I am at some form of a crucible. I am at some point of an axis where I am going to go one way or another. How do you find that? I put it in every management presentation. I put it in every section 7 of the 10K, Management's Discussion and Analysis. I do it at every analyst conference. Even in front of the shareholders, I may occasionally say it, but to be honest with you, it's probably going to be more in a documented form. And those are available for you. In addition, if you use the analyst report, you get an opportunity to find the trigger points the analyst thinks. In taking a look at these companies, we'll take a look at a few of them in a few minutes, what are the areas that they are looking for people to concentrate on? I've talked about MD&As before, Management's Discussion and Analysis, and how it really contains 3 things. It's 1, here's how things went last year. 2, here's where they didn't go well. And 3, can someone help me? Now, we never, of course, write, can someone help me? But literally, when I write my MD&A, when I do my presentation at an analyst meeting, I am effectively putting forward all the things I've done, all the things I'm going to do, but there's an inherent understanding underneath that. If you have any desire to take a look at your customer, that I need help, that I have opportunities for you to talk. And we've gone through the wheel of value, and you know we're talking right now about the upper left side quadrant, where the 5 to 10% of the good calls that were made on me reside, where people understand all of the information on the wheel and also have gone and taken a look at that Management's Discussion Analysis, the presentation and the analyst calls. You know, I've talked in the past about my ability to do things. Let's take a look at what some of CXOs are looking for right now. So let's take a look at P&G. Specifically, P&G is looking to continue sales growth momentum, but what that really means is they want to grow at 2 to 3% faster than their competitors. They want to take market share. Now, growing 2 to 3%, let's say we grow 2% on top of 2% inflation, 4%, that's not a big deal. Think about what P&G makes. Think about what a lot of your clients make that are, as Boston Consulting Group calls them, the cash cows. They make products that are a function of the total number of people or changing habits of people in a country. So if a population is growing at 0.5% a year and inflation is growing at 2% a year, at most the number of bottles of Coca-Cola, the number of Pampers, the amount of milk you sell, at best can grow at 2.5. So when they say 4 or 4.5, they're talking about taking somebody's market share in an aggressive way. How do you link to that? And how do you help me then drive that down to operating earnings? Let's take a look at AEP. We've now gone from general ideas to more specific. How many of you take a look at this and include this in your letter on a specific basis? I can't tell you how many people have told me that they want to come in and increase revenue. Everybody in this group, there's about 950 of you, raise your hand if you've ever come in to a client and said, we're here to reduce revenue. I don't see any hands up. How about we're here to raise costs? No hands up either. So how dumb do you think it sounds to me when you say, I'm here to raise revenue and reduce costs? Duh, of course you are. Nobody's ever said the contrary. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking to reposition my transmission business. I'm looking to execute on my Ohio policy, and I'm looking to meet the EPA requirements that have just changed. In the banking business, I'm looking to meet Basel III. In healthcare, I'm looking to meet meaningful use. How do you include that in the conversation to get the appointment? How do you include that in the conversation that says to me, I want to meet with this person and I want to be able to change my business, and this person looks like a partner? Coffee. Starbucks took a generic product and turned it into a branded product. Just like American Express did it with travel, other companies have done it with products that were somewhat mundane and have become core businesses. As we look at these, take a look now at Starbucks' interpretation of what I'm looking for. So when you walk in, your core business has got to be around how do you change the customer satisfaction level, which, by the way, is also a metric that is very critical for healthcare. How do you take customer sat that drives revenue? How do you use the language of my organization that makes it specific? When you talk to me in the telecom business, I expect you to use ARPU. When you talk to me in the different businesses, I expect you to use my language. And now you've taken my language and my issues and you've put it into a provocative idea. How do you change my business in a way that I don't know? How do you make it sound credible? This is what I'm expecting in that voicemail. This is what I'm expecting in that email. This is what I'm expecting in the first 5 minutes of our conversation. How do you win access? It's very simple. It is that early combination of being specific to my industry, being specific to my company, and now putting it in a way that lets me see you have a way of changing my business. You want to have a simple slide? Write down these 4 questions. If you can't answer these 4 questions in a way that says, this matters, why would I see you? How are you enabling me to do something I can't do myself? I never had a large organization. At most, I had 15,000 people reporting to me. I know it sounds like a lot, but there are people today that have 50 to 100,000 people reporting to them. So how are you going to enable me to do something that my 50,000 people haven't figured out to do? Why should I be spending precious time with you? CXOs are paid roughly $1,000 to $3,000 per hour. And being good CXOs, they feel they probably should bill their time out at least a 3-time markup. So when I see you, it is probably costing my organization $5,000 to $10,000 an hour to spend with you. Think about that. If you had to walk in with a check for $10,000 to spend an hour with me, $5,000 to spend 30 minutes with me, how quickly would you come in with a bad call? How quickly would you have a bad voicemail? How quickly would you leave a bad email? You have to focus on my organization and the things that I'm focused on. Here are 3 more organizations. Look at how specific they are. Look at the financial metrics that are part of this discussion. So not only do you need to focus, make yourselves more knowledgeable of myself, who you are is who you're going to see. Not only do you need to understand my financials, but you also have to understand how you link to them. And we'll do that in another conversation. So now I talked about P&G before. What is growth? Growth is 1% to 2% faster than market. Market is 2.5%. Thus, oh, by the way, free cash flow is important. Why? Again, we're a slow growth organization. The only ways we succeed is by stealing market share, wrestling it away. That's what happens in cash cow situations. 2, cutting costs specific to manufacturing prices or sales and marketing. And 3, doing that using less assets, thus freeing up cash flow. Those of you obviously have been following us on the blog and the LinkedIn conversations. We bring these topics up on a weekly basis. When I talk to you, now that you've come in, I expect you to be fully prepared with the references. So we've talked about getting in, the provocative idea, and now you're going to prove yourself. One of the most important things is references to me. References of people or companies of equal stature that are non-competitors. Do you really think, given the problems that have gone on between Oracle and HP in the news, that your best reference when you're talking to Oracle would be, oh, we worked with HP? Do you really think that your best reference at B of A is Wells Fargo, where they're continuing to fight out on the West Coast, city by city, for high net worth individuals in their banking group? I may bring up, where else have you done this in the industry? Fantastic. Talk to me about your work with Australian New Zealand Bank, ANZ Bank. Talk to me about how you've done the work with Siemens. Talk to me about non-direct competitors. I'll even take, if we're talking about transactions, how you work with the airline industry who does several million transactions a day, if you're talking to me at a bank that's looking to do several million transactions a day. If I force you to bring up the industry, fantastic. I've said to you it's okay. But these reference successes of individuals, executives, and also companies are what make you successful. So now it's time to get that appointment. Ask for the time. What is the trigger point? What is that provocative idea? And then what is that 30 minutes? Simple letter. Just like a voicemail, it should be able to be delivered in 30 seconds to a minute. As a matter of fact, if you're going to do the same thing in a voicemail, you should be able to feel comfortable that your voicemail is going to be concise, clear, and short. I don't give advice on whether you should use letters, emails, FedEx, or whatever. It just depends on, or emails. It just depends on your client. Some people have email filters that are so strong that the spam filters pull you out. Some people have voicemail. They have 2 levels of voicemail interference that you never get through. I would suggest you just find out what the company feels comfortable with and do that. We have a company now that's one of our clients that requires you to send a text message or an email if you're going to call them. They just don't use voicemail and telephone to any great extent. You're going to use my executive assistant, that's obvious, and we've spent more time in the past in other webinars talking about the extent and the methods of using them. And you also have a great opportunity to come to a shareholder meeting, to come to a charitable event that can be costly, and to talk to me about it. If you're going to use my assistant, we're going to just give you a quick overview. We're going to go this in more depth. Use them as somebody who is my right hand. And by that, I don't usually mean like a madman type of situation. Most of my assistants were MBAs, were engineers. And so as a result of that, treat them as basically extensions of me and use them to help you get there. If you're going to use a voicemail, take a look at it. Write it down. Put it together. Send it off to yourself. Listen to it. Send it off to yourself again. Use your recording function on your phone. Send yourself a voicemail. Send your manager a voicemail. 30 to 45 seconds. That's it. I will delete you after 15. I know that sounds insane, but within the first 10 to 15 seconds, I will make a determination whether I should invest another 15 to 30 seconds in this. 30 to 45 seconds is all you get. Practice, practice, practice. I am amazed at the number of people who have gotten involved in this area. More and more organizations are seeking to try to understand what looks like good and what looks like bad for a sales force. Time out of field has become extremely expensive for most EVPs of sales, for most learning groups, for most companies. And so we put this up in the past, and I think this is a few of the more recent awards we've won about this. But the reason we have resonated with not only these organizations, but also with our clients is, as executives, and that's all our company is made up of 15 or 18 executives, we share these ideas not only with the sales force, but with companies. So when I speak on these webinars, and I know a lot of you hear just Jim, we've occasionally done some with guests, it is not just my ideas that I'm sharing with you. I'm sharing with you ideas of 15 to 18 different ideas with the former Chief Executive Officer of NCR, with the former Undersecretary of Defense, with the former Chief Financial Officer of Charles Schwab. These are the folks like myself who faced these situations. We've retired to consulting positions. Some of us are actually running small organizations that we've made investments in. But the biggest reason we do this is to share with you and to give back what we learned. We're hoping that these conversations make sense. We're hoping these conversations bring value to you. Obviously, we've built up to an audience of 900 people today, so it seems like we're doing that. Eric started off the conversation with, give us ideas. We're always open for them. I want to thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Eric for the questions. I know last week we almost went 20 minutes over with questions. Sorry we spoke to the 30-minute mark, but Eric, if you've got a few questions, let's see what we can do.
Jim, thanks again for a very insightful presentation. Indeed, we have more questions than we have time to get through as we're at the top of the hour. Let me first apologize to all those that said, hey, why isn't my company's logo on that opening slide? Obviously, we could only fit so many on there. Next one up, in terms of reaching access to one level of executive, Jim, but then finding yourself delegated down to some lower level. So that broader, how do I avoid or minimize the number of times I'm delegated down? Any responses to that?
Sure. Quick answer to that one would be, sometimes it makes sense for you to be delegated to a vice president and an EVP. Yes, if you've gone below vice president, you're right. You've not added value. Nobody in the organization has seen your value, and you may want to rethink that. I worked with a client once where, just a quick story, where we went to see one of the large automakers, and we thought we needed to see the CEO. And we actually got an appointment because of the quality of the company I was working with. Turned out the only reason the CEO wanted to see this company was because they wanted to sponsor a NASCAR racing car. We realized that the VP of operations was the person we should see, and we actually changed our direction. So VPs might be a good one. Below that, you're right, you've been delegated too far. I would say look at yourself. for the answer on that one.
Great. And skimming through here, Jim, referencing the slide, you'll meet with who you sound like, and the response is, hey, if I'm cold calling, which is often the situation I find myself in, CXOs don't cold call. How does that make me more likely to meet with somebody, or trying to reconcile how I should sound like to reach access to some of these folks?
Well, I would say to you that, first of all, I don't believe that. I got a letter the other day, actually, from Australia, and it just says, a quick note, sent off 3 emails to CFOs. I'll just summarize it. The mining company thought it made a lot of sense for me to see them in 3 weeks. The steel company was impressed with my ideas on currency fluctuations, and the insurance company CFO told me that probably didn't make sense to talk to them to Q4. Thanks so much. Now I have to get ready and get up the courage to have these meetings. I would suggest to you that, fine, cold calling might be cold emailing. It might be cold calling on a vice president to move up to a senior vice president. I will tell you that, again, I'm just reading this letter I just got several days ago. It is not that hard. The hardest part for most people is their inability to do it right.
A number of questions talking around the idea, what are the top 2 to 3 ways to reach somebody? And Jim, you touched on that during the presentation, that one person here had said that I often don't get a return to a voicemail. I've had more success with email. Somebody else asking about couriering a FedEx or a UPS package. And again, I think your response was, there is no single right answer. And what I would say is that a non-response is just that, a non-response, not a no. If you're not getting a response to one mode of entry, say an email or a voicemail, try something else. But there is no a right answer across the board to all this stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would tell you the answer is you just did something wrong, and keep doing it until you get it right. Maybe we have spam filters. Maybe we have voicemail filters. Maybe we have whatever. Keep trying. I mean, my God, we're talking about your going and getting accounts that are going to yield you somewhere between $1 and $100 million, given some of the companies on this that are on this call. You really think you've tried it one or two different ways? Your time is up.
And lastly, let's close with one that popped off at me, at least. How do I competitively differentiate my message and trying to reach an executive from all the others? Lots of people are employing some type of solution selling type strategy. What stands out from the crowd?
If that were true, there would be no such thing as brands. Everybody would just sell routers, X-ray machines, salt, and dirt. And we don't. What we sell is we sell value. And the value you sell is around my company, and it's around how my company is successful. What your message is, it's not about your solution. It's not about your product. It's not about sand, dirt, or X-ray machines. It's about me. It's around my business issues. It's around the risk reduction that you can bring. It's around specific metrics that I am telling the world we're going to hit or else. And when your conversation starts off with a voicemail, with an email, with a letter that way, and when the conversation, when you sit down, starts out that way, that's how you add value, and that's how you differentiate yourself. You don't differentiate yourself around your products or your software or your services.
Jim, thank you again for a great conversation. We're a little bit past the top of the hour. Thanks to all of you who joined us. Again, we encourage hearing from you at info@conversation.com. Let us know what future topics would be most useful for you. This concludes today's presentation.